Happy hump day and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host Vance Ballard, but you already know you can call me VB. Want to thank everybody for joining us today, watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. As you know, we like watching you guys interact, hearing some of your thoughts on what's going on the program, and getting to interact with you guys a little bit down in the chat as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Got a few things buzzing around in the Queen City. Got some stuff on the docket for today, but we're going to start the show off. I know we've had a couple audio issues the last few days. Those should be taken care of. Should not be a problem for today's show, but we're going to start things off with that KJ Simpson segment that was muted out yesterday. We're going to re-go over that and the impact he can potentially have on the Charlotte Hornets going forwards, not just this season, but in the future as well. The rumor mill is also back hot and heavy, still working hard here in the late part of August. We'll talk about a new name, a new trade that has been brought up that the Hornets should try and pursue. We'll discuss that as well. We also know the former number 6 pick overall, Tidjane Salaün, comes into this season with some high expectations, a lot of pressure, for lack of a better word, on him to take that next step to prove that taking him with the 6th overall pick was the right decision when the Hornets made it in 2024. We'll talk about his impact, what role he's going to play going forward this season for the Hornets as well. And we all know one of the things that looms the largest right now around the Hornets organization is that number 15 on the in terms of guys on the roster, getting that number down from 18 to 15. Decision time is looming, and the Hornets have some decisions to make going into that. We'll talk a little bit about that today. What could those decisions possibly look like? Who could it be on the way out before the regular season starts for Charlotte? We'll discuss that to wrap the show up. Now, you know I don't like to beat around the bush. We dive right into the program here on Hornets Daily, and that's exactly what we're going to do today as well. Now, we tried this yesterday. It's got muted out. We've had some audio issues, but we're battling through those. Those should be fixed. And so we're going to talk today about KJ Simpson and the impact that he can have on the Charlotte Hornets. Feels like it's been a while since we brought up KJ Simpson, especially since you guys know how fond of him that I am. And we all remember what he did out in Las Vegas this summer, the steps he took, the improvement it appears that his game has made going from year 1 to year 2, as he averaged 19 points per game out in Las Vegas, shot 47% from the field, added on 37% from beyond the arc. Simpson also had almost 6 assists per game while in Las Vegas and 4 rebounds to go along with it. Now, one of the most impressive things about his performance during the Summer League was that he was the major bright spot, the main bright spot on the defensive end for the Hornets, averaging 1.5 steals per game while out in Las Vegas for the Summer League as well. He was not just important in the stat sheet, he was also important and fantastic at controlling the offense, at running the floor, being a floor general, commanding his guys where to go and what to do on that end of the floor. Same on defense. He was a leader on that end of the floor, telling his guys where they need to be, putting guys in places, almost being a coach-type player on the floor during the Summer League out in Las Vegas. He was a fantastic definition of a true point guard for the Hornets. Now, KJ also comes in with a bit of an advantage. He's got some NBA minutes under his belt already. We know he was thrown into the fire, thrust into the lineup last year due to injuries to Trey Mann, injuries to LaMelo Ball. It forced KJ Simpson's hand into having to play in the NBA, probably before the Hornets wanted him to, before they felt he was ready. But I think that is an advantage to him now. He is familiar with what the NBA game looks like, what he needs to do to improve and continue to play at an NBA level. Now, those are all very good things, but we do know that Charlotte stockpiled guards, has a log jam in that room coming into the preseason, coming into training camp, and the regular season as well. We know how jammed up that guard room is in Charlotte. What does that mean for KJ? Will that take away a chance for him to get some experience, a chance for him to find his spot in the rotation this year. That may be the case. He's going to start on a two-way contract. We're probably going to see him spend most of his time in Greensboro, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That gives KJ Simpson another year to develop, another year to continue to learn how to play the guard position the way the NBA requires it to be played. It allows for him to continue to improve his shooting and his leadership ability from the point guard position. And it gives the Hornets an extra added security blanket should catastrophe strike again. LaMelo Ball go down, Colin Sexton get hurt, Trey Mann get hurt, Knipple, Dinwiddie, somebody like that. It gives an extra security blanket knowing you have an NBA-ready guy, a guy like KJ Simpson who understands the system, who understands the culture that we're trying to switch to and move to here in Charlotte, and keeping him around, not just for this season, but he could be a very important part of the future going forward. As we know, Sexton is on a one-year deal, Spencer Dinwiddie on a one-year deal, Pat Connaughton all on one-year deals. So if the Hornets decide not to sign any of those guys, if they decide not to keep any of them around, just move on from them, whether it be a trade in the regular season, a trade before the deadline, whatever that may be, moving on from those guys, having someone like KJ Simpson in the back ready to step up and fill that position with really no drop-off in production is going to be vital. So keeping KJ Simpson not just for this year but around for the future and having him be a part of the plan for this organization, I think is going to be very important. I think it's going to be vital and something the Hornets could definitely benefit from, keeping KJ Simpson around, allowing him to continue to develop and move forwards in his NBA career, whether that be all predominantly in Greensboro this year or if he does have to make his way to Charlotte, find himself in that rotation somehow. They're going to be just fine there. There's an extra sense of comfortability with the second-year guy coming out of Greensboro, and if he has to play in the NBA, KJ Simpson can certainly do that. Now, as I mentioned as well to start the show, it is late August. We're looking at the 27th on the calendar for the day. We're moving into the month of September, but that does not stop the rumor mill from working its hardest, being at its hottest and heaviest, and continuing to spit out different trades, different hypotheticals, different whatever you want to call them, scenarios that the Hornets should take a look at and players they should talk about adding. We've got a brand new one today. This one comes from Matt Alaquiza over at Sports Illustrated. He thinks the Hornets could and should try to take even more from the Utah Jazz to go out and get another piece of that depleted roster out in Utah, as if grabbing Colin Sexton for Jusuf Nurkic wasn't enough. Alaquiza thinks there is a world where the quote-unquote cash-in that Jeff Peterson talked about with all of the pieces in the Real Access video that we've seen on YouTube and discussed here on the program, Alaquiza thinks that cash-in could come in the form of Lauri Markkanen, the Utah Jazz big man. Just another piece that the Hornets could go out and get from that team again. We know Utah is in the middle of a rebuild. They've got a very confusing situation going on out there. They do have Ace Bailey to start to build around, but they've moved on from a lot of their other guys, Colin Sexton being one of them, and they pretty much took, no offense to Jusuf Nurkic, but they kind of took a bag of Skittles to give away Colin Sexton, and I think that is going to greatly benefit the Hornets. But could they be in the talks to move on from another important piece of their team, Lauri Markkanen? That's what Alaquiza thinks the Hornets should try and do. Now, I will say straight, this is an opinion, but I think it's probably true. It's going to take a lot more than just a Jusuf Nurkic to get Lauri Markkanen away from the Utah Jazz, as he would instantly be an upgrade at the 4 or the 5 position for the Hornets. He comes in, we know he's a true stretch big man. He shoots 37% from beyond the three-point line for his career, and he is fantastic off the catch and shoot. Now, he's not great at creating his own shot from beyond the arc. Every three-pointer he made last year, over 100, all came via the assist, but that goes back to the catch and shoot that I was talking about. He's deadly off the catch when he is in his spot, and if he can get out there and get to it, a guy like LaMelo Ball could have no problems finding him with the basketball. That would be a lot of fun to watch. As I was saying, he can easily play the 4 or the 5 and not miss a beat at either position. He's got the size to drop down to the 5 and play with some of the bigger guys in the NBA. He's also, if he was to play the 4, he would be a bigger 4 on the floor, and he is a fantastic stretch option at that position, which again would just open the floor even more for guys like LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple, Colin Sexton, all of the above. Their options would increase greatly, as now a big man has to go out to the perimeter to follow around Lauri Markkanen because he can't be left alone out there, which would open some space up, driving to the basket, kicking in new lanes, making different cuts. We know that's what Con does best, move without the ball in his hand. So something like that would greatly improve the Hornets and give them a lot more options on the offensive end of the floor. Markkanen, not known as an elite all-NBA level, all-first-team defense level type guy on that end of the floor, but he's more than competent on the defensive end. He's big enough to get in the way, not necessarily known as a rim protector, but his size allows for him to be in the way, to be a good defensive spot there in the paint on that end of the floor. He's also quite athletic, so he too can step out if he is guarding a stretch 4. If he has to drop down and guard a 3, he can do that. He can really play 3 spots on the floor, 3, 4, and 5, due to his skill set and athleticism. That would be a big step up. That would be a big upgrade, as he could give Brandon Miller a chance to move up and play the 2, or even go to the bench and take a break for a little while. Con Knipple, same thing. That would be very important. Another added piece Lauri Markkanen could be. Now, one thing about him, he is 28 years old, and I know that's not old, but it does kind of contradict some of the things I've been saying here on the show, especially in terms of Miles Bridges, him being 27, and the Hornets thinking maybe he's starting to age out, maybe looking to move on from him. He does not, however, come with the same numbers, the same shooting percentage, the same scoring efficiency that Lauri Markkanen does, so that may be where the Hornets are willing to take an exception to that age, take an exception to a guy who's on the upper end of 30 years old and would be basically a grandpa compared to a lot of the guys on this team. Now, I think since he is so much more versatile than a Miles Bridges, that again is where the age doesn't come into play. That's where the Hornets would be willing to look past that 28-year-old number and see that he is still young, still kind of right in the middle of his prime, figuring things out. A veteran in the NBA, having been in the league since 2017, Markkanen could again bring a presence that the Hornets desperately need, as well as a shooting percentage that goes up. Now, Alaquisa thinks in order to get Baby Dirk from the Utah Jazz, it would require at least one of the 2025 draft class members, along with some salary to match and a majority of the assets that we have heard Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson talk about, specifically Peterson when he mentioned the cash in again in the Real Access video that we watched earlier in the summer. Now, Alaquisa thinks that the likely member of the 25 draft class that will be sent to Utah is Liam McNeely, as he's probably, we know Con is untouchable, we're not getting him. He brings more to the table than Ryan Kalkbrenner and Sion James does. So it would likely be Liam McNeely, along with that salary to match and most of the assets or pieces that the Hornets have acquired would also be sent out to Utah. Now the question is that too much for Lauri Markkanen? Does him being 28, does him having played in the NBA for quite a while now, approaching year 8, I believe, if my math is correct, do those things have too much of an impact to move on from a guy with a future as bright as Liam McNeely's? We've talked about him on the show. I've raved about the chances of him possibly sneaking into the Rookie of the Year debate and making a real impact off the bench for the Hornets. So that is the big question. Is that too much to offer for a guy like Lauri Markkanen? And of course, these are just rumor mill hypotheticals, but I think that if the Hornets could make a move and the Jazz would be willing to answer the phone, then it might be worth talking to. Maybe not necessarily for Liam McNeely. If there's another guy, another name the Hornets are likely to throw out, I don't want to speculate there, but if there's someone else, another piece that Utah may be willing to take, then it would absolutely be worth it. But if Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson feel that it is worth moving on from a young prospect like Liam McNeely in order to get what is an established player in the NBA, a game changer for the Hornets. If they feel that that is the right move, then I don't think we can knock it. I think the Hornets would be definitely taking a step in the right direction, adding a guy like Lauri Markkanen. Not sure how possible it is, not sure how realistic it is, but Matt Alaquisa wrote about it on Sports Illustrated, so I figured we'd talk about it and take a visit to the rumor mill here today. Now, a guy we know is already on the roster, someone who does have to take that next step forward, someone who's coming into this season with a lot of expectations and some pressure on him to perform, is the former number 6 overall pick, Tidjane Salaün. We know he's already on the roster. We know that there's a lot of expectations following him around going into this season when he was selected last year with the 6th overall pick. It kind of sent some confusion and some shock through the fan base as a sense of wonderment as to why the Hornets would go out and get such a project, such a developmental piece, when it's not necessarily what they needed at the time. But that's what happened, and Salaün has shown this offseason that he is ready to take that next step. He's ready to handle those expectations and deal with that pressure that's coming from the outside as he is ready to go with Season 2 in the NBA. He played very well out in Las Vegas, much like KJ Simpson and the rest of the squad. Honestly, the championship that the Hornets acquired out there, Salaün averaged double figures while out in Las Vegas in both points and rebounds. He did only play in 2 games, but he looked very much improved on the offensive end of the floor, and we know his defense is not really his issue. We know he can be a good defender there. His athleticism and his wingspan allows for him to overcome his size disadvantage, his sheer height disadvantage in the paint against other bigs. His athleticism and length can make up for that, and he can be just fine on defense. Now, we know in the regular season last year, Tidjane was a little bit unimpressive, averaging 5.9 points a game, 4.7 rebounds a game, and the real struggles came while just shooting 33% from the field and 28% from 3. But those numbers seem as if they're going to drastically improve based on what we've seen in the gym from working out with Salaün, based on what we've seen in Summer League minutes. The 33 and the 28% are going to go up drastically, which then in turn would increase that 5.9 points per game a little bit as well. If the Hornets can find a way to get double figures out of Salaün in either points or rebounds or both coming off of the bench next year, then that would be an absolute bright spot going forward. That would be just an even further sign that the development is working. The project that is Salaün is turning out the way the Hornets hoped it would if he can play that way and improve his percentages and numbers going into the year. Again, thus far, Salaün looks much improved and ready to handle the pressure and expectations coming along with him. The newly constructed roster here in Charlotte may set up for a big year too for the Frenchman. He's another true 4 on the roster, much like Diabate is as well. But again, as I was mentioning, the length, the wingspan, the 7'2" wingspan that he carries with him, the athleticism that is what really got him drafted in the first place, or a big part of what got him drafted in the first place, could really go a long ways towards bolstering his ability to play down to that 5 position if need be, as he would be able to guard guys with the length and be more athletic than the traditional big man in the NBA. He could use that to his advantage on both sides of the floor. If he continues the way he was heading during Summer League, shooting from inside and out, as I've mentioned, will take a very big step forward. That will greatly improve the Hornets' offense on that end of the floor. As we know, the whole team was not very good at shooting the basketball last year, so an improvement from Salaün would also improve the rest of the team as well. Having him as a threat to stretch the floor would also allow the Hornets playmakers a little more room to operate. And much like Moussa Diabate, Salaün comes in as an above-average rebounder in the NBA. We know that's not something he struggles with. Again, that touches on the length and athleticism that I was talking about before. He's quickly becoming a guy who can play the 4 or the 5 alongside any combination of roster the Hornets could possibly throw out there. So Salaün will be able to give breathers for guys at the 4 and the 5 if need be. he can start at one of those two positions. I don't think he's going to work his way into that on opening night just quite yet, but I do think if, again, disaster strikes, if someone goes down, Moose gets hurt, Kalk gets hurt, Plumlee gets hurt, Bridges gets hurt, Grant Williams' return is even more delayed, something like that, then a guy like Salaün should come in and fill any of those spots really without any downtick in production. And we have to remember that he's still just 20 years old, so he is one of the pieces that the Hornets have brought in at a very, very young age, hopefully to be here for the long haul and continue to develop as he moves forward. Now, if he can continue his form from this summer, from the Summer League, and continue to improve his offensive and defensive game along with his shooting ability, then the Hornets have a very vital piece, and it's going to start to look more and more like him being the number 6 overall pick was the right choice for the Hornets, but that is going to be something we have to wait and see how that unfolds, as Salaün will be the one responsible for taking that next step. It does appear already that he's made the efforts necessary to do so, but of course we won't be able to know that for sure until the regular season gets here and the Hornets have officially run out their roster and who they're going to play and what their rotation is going to look like. Now, talking a little about that roster, I told you we're going to wrap the show up today, knowing that the Hornets still have some very big decisions to make. Decision time is looming quickly in Charlotte. We know that the Hornets still have 18 players on the roster, and the magic number they have to be down to by opening night is 15. Now, that has been a major topic of discussion, not nearly as major as the center position as a whole, but it has been a major topic of discussion all summer. It's something we've talked about at length here on the program. Who are the unlucky 3 going to be? Who are the guys that are on their way out with the Charlotte Hornets? Who's going to be that lucky, or who is going to be unfortunate and not make that final 15? You've heard me list pretty much every possible name that could be moved on from as we continue to approach that decision being made. We know the guys like Daquan Jeffries, Nick Smith Jr., Pat Connaughton, Wendell Moore Jr. have all been mentioned to be on the chopping block for the Hornets, and it's getting closer and closer to finding out who that's going to be. Now, it's becoming more and more popular as we know Daquan Jeffries probably on the way out. That one feels pretty safe to assume at some point he'll be on his way out. His contract not guaranteed anyway, and I don't think the Hornets are going to go forward with guaranteeing that contract, so Jeffries will more than likely be waived from the roster. I think another name here that's pretty easy to say the Hornets are going to move on from is Wendell Moore Jr. He probably won't be on the roster anymore. Now that leaves that third guy to be moved on from, and that's where I think it gets very interesting. It's becoming more and more popular that Nick Smith Jr. will be that third man to go, as the Hornets just kind of, it seems, don't really have a spot for him on the roster, as he too is affected, like KJ Simpson is, by the logjam of guards in that room, by the abundance of names in that position group. Smith kind of gets lost in translation with all the other names there. Again, I think one of the biggest reasons he's been mentioned so often is he is the most tradable piece that the Hornets would be willing to move on from at this point. He's a very young guy coming into his second year in the NBA. He's got a lot of potential, a very high upside, and that brings a lot with his game that people can get excited about in terms of development and continuing to get better. Now, I think that, again, Daquan Jeffries, Wendell Moore are likely to be moved on from, but I don't, however, think that Nick Smith Jr. is going to be the guy. If you guys heard back a few weeks ago, I have a theory about Nick Smith Jr. I think he's been getting just a little bit too much love, too much publication, too much publicity from the Hornets. They went out of their way to make an announcement that he was changing his number. They sent a film crew to follow him around in his hometown while he was putting on a basketball camp. These just don't feel like things you do for a guy you're about to cut, or you're about to trade, or you know you're going to move on from, or you know isn't going to be on your roster come opening day. Now, I could be very wrong about that, but that's just a theory I have, so I don't necessarily, I'm starting to lean more and more towards Nick Smith not being the third guy, not being the third man moved on from by the Hornets. I think it's going to be Pat Connaughton. Now, again, I could be very wrong about this, but my spidey senses are tingling, and it leads me to believe that Pat Connaughton is going to be the third member cut from the Hornets to get that number down to 15. Now, what does that mean they're going to do with Nick Smith Jr.? I don't know. I'm not sure that there's a spot for him, but it is starting to feel like the Hornets like him more than we think they do, and he's a guy they want to keep around just in case. And it's hard to blame the Hornets planning for the worst case scenario at the guard position, especially with the trauma and having dealt with LaMelo Ball and his injury history going forward. Now Brandon Miller kind of falling in that category as well, as he too has struggled to stay healthy as of late. So maybe that could be why a guy like Nick Smith Jr. sticks around. He's young enough. He can play both guard positions, and maybe the Hornets are just preparing for disaster to strike. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, a guy like Nick Smith Jr. could maybe find his way into the rotation. Now, I know you tell me Connaughton can do a lot of the same things, except for he can shoot better, and he is a proven veteran defender, but he's a little more... He is older. That also impacts things, and Nick Smith Jr. is a little more athletic, a little quicker on and off the ball, so that could potentially be a reason why the Hornets don't move on from him. I don't know what exactly is going to happen. Obviously, it could be Nick Smith Jr., it could be Pat Connaughton. Daquan Jeffries, Wendell Moore seem to be a little more secure in not coming back, especially Daquan Jeffries with the non-guaranteed contract. Those two seem a little bit easier, but that third guy, that is a huge decision for the Hornets, as I've mentioned, still looming there. It's going to be a major question heading into camp. Now, it's more than likely not going to be before camp or even before the preseason that we know all three of these moves. Nick Smith Jr. specifically probably going to get a chance in preseason in training camp to show the Hornets one last time that he can make that roster. Again, I think he may have already done that. That's just a take that I have, but I won't credit for it if it's right. But he'll probably get that chance in the preseason, in training camp, before any moves are officially made. So that is going to be very interesting, something to keep a very close eye on. You know, we'll keep watch for here on Hornets Daily. If it is announced tomorrow, we'll have it on tomorrow's show. If not, we'll be watching along with you guys every step of the way until it is decided what the Hornets are going to do with that roster. Now, that is going to do it for today's show. As always, thank you so much for watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on what's going on the program today, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow with a brand new episode of